Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to pull a horse's mane. And it's actually Tucker's second time in the barn and in these cross ties, so he's a little freaked out, so we'll see how he does today. As always, before we get started, make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel for more weekly horse videos. So to begin with, let's talk about exactly what pulling a horse's mane means. Well, it's basically exactly as it sounds. What it means is that you're removing the horse's hair at the root of their mane. And this is to give them a nice clean and polished look. It helps to thin their mane and also to shorten it, which is great if you're wanting to do shows. It'll give you that nice, classy, professional look in the show ring. So the materials you'll need to pull your horse's mane are a mane brush, a metal comb, and I highly recommend getting metal because the plastic ones will actually break if you use the plastic. So get a metal comb. And lastly, it's always smart just to have some scissors on hand if you need to even out the mane or just fix anything that you accidentally messed up. And just a quick note before we go to pull Tucker's mane, you don't want to use any kind of product or water or vinegar or apple cider vinegar on your horse's mane when you go to pull it, just because it makes the hair really elastic, which will actually make it harder to pull. So we're just going to go all natural here, and we're going to brush this out and then get pulling. So step one, I'm going to start by brushing my horse's mane. So you're just going to brush out your horse's mane before you start pulling, just to get out any snarls that they may have. Tucker has a really thick pony mane, so I'm going to make sure I brush his mane really good. Another thing you're going to want to do is make sure you get both layers of your horse's mane. So there's usually a few layers when you look through the mane, and you just want to make sure you brush the inside layer and the outside layer, because you're technically going to be pulling both of those layers. Just a side note, you actually don't pull the horse's forelock. We're just going to pull this part of the mane. You want this to be nice and pretty and cute, don't you? Yeah. So before you start pulling the horse's mane, it's important that you determine what length you want before you start. So if you're one that's going to be going to shows and that may need to braid your horse's mane, a good length would be a hand plus an inch. So about that long you want to pull it to. And that way you have enough mane to braid if you need to, and it'll just look better for the show ring. Okay, so I'm going to start pulling my horse's mane. For now, I'm going to leave this part of the mane just because it's about the length I want. And so I'll take a little bit like this, and that's my length. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to comb the hair up. I'll actually take a little bit smaller amount. And you always want to take a small amount, because then when you pull it, it's not going to bug the horse as much. So if you have a horse that is really bad about this anyway, I recommend starting with a smaller amount of hair, and that way they just don't feel it as much. And a lot of times as you move up towards your horse's ears, they start to get really bad about getting their mane pulled. But that's because we're getting tired, so we're grabbing bigger chunks of mane. So that's when you need to remember to get a small piece of mane. And then I'm going to tease the hair up like this, just to remove any hair that may already be the length I want it. So I'll brush up. And once I do that, I'm going to take the mane and wrap it around my brush, or my comb, excuse me. I'm going to put my thumb on that hair and then just tear down, like that. Then I can brush it out. You're being a good boy. Yes, you are. So before I finish up Tucker's mane, I'll just share a couple more tips with you guys if you have a horse that doesn't really like their mane pulled. So a lot of people ask the question, well, doesn't mane pulling hurt the horse? I've wondered that myself, and it's a lot of controversy within the horse world. The thing is, every horse is different. Some horses can cope with it well, they don't even really feel it, and it can even put them to sleep. Some horses will have a harder time, and they may toss their head or just refuse to have their mane pulled. So it just really depends on your horse. I've only ever had one horse that really did not like it. I pulled her mane over the course of about a week just to give her time to relax, and so we didn't get in a big fight or a tiff. Another thing you can do is, if your horse is starting to get antsy in one particular part of their neck when you're mane pulling, you can jump around. So you can go from here to here to here, and that's just so that space doesn't have that concentrated pressure that you're applying. So the perfect time to pull a horse's mane is actually in the spring when they start shedding. So their hair will naturally be more loose anyway, so the mane is a lot more likely to come out easier compared to if you pull it you know, in the summer or in the winter. The other thing you can do to make mane pulling easier is to actually work your horse before you pull their mane. Working your horse helps open pores as they go to sweat, and that will make it a lot easier to pull their mane when they're like that. You may be wondering, are there alternatives to pulling a horse's mane? There are a few I've come across. None are as effective as pulling the mane when it comes to just getting that nice, clean, and polished look. But I'll go ahead and share with you what I found. One thing you can do if you want to give your horse that nice pulled look, but you don't really have the time, or maybe you just don't like pulling their mane because it seems like it may be harsh for them, something you can do is take their mane and then take scissors and cut down, and that will help thin out the mane too and give it more of that natural look compared to just cutting it across. When you cut it across, the mane will look really poofy, but if you cut down, it'll help thin it out a little bit. Another thing I've seen people do, but I haven't tried it yet, so I don't know how effective it is that they do basically the same thing where they tease the mane up with this brush, but instead of pulling it, then they just take scissors and they cut it, and I'm going to do it to see what it looks like. I don't know how polished that would end up being, because then you get more of that, it looks like you cut it with scissors. So, just some things to consider if you want to try alternative methods. Alright, so I'm going to finish up Tucker's mane, and then I'll show you the finished product when I'm done. So here's the finished product of pulling a horse's mane. This is about as even as I've ever pulled a mane. I usually never pull it even, and I always have to go back and correct myself. So if you need to do this, you can just use some scissors and just cut out the uneven parts that are maybe a little uneven. So I'll go back and do that. If you could run your hands through his mane, you'd see it feels a lot thinner compared to before, and that's exactly what I wanted. So that worked. Overall, it took me probably about an hour to do this. So make sure you set aside a good amount of time to do this when you go to pull your horse's mane. So do you have another method that you use to pull your horse's mane? If so, comment below and let me know, and I'd love to try it out. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to our channel for more weekly horse videos. I don't have any more treats. You were such a good boy. Kiss. Oh, thank you.